This is Growing Your Firm, the podcast for ambitious accountants and firm owners who want to work smarter, grow faster, and lead better. Hey everybody, welcome to Growing Your Firm podcast. My name is Dave Christello. I'm the founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow. This podcast is for any firm owner that wants to elevate their marketing, their sales, their team management, workflow, technology, and so much more. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, David Christello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest is Justine Lackey. You might recognize the name. She talked at our CAS Summit. She's talking at our M&A Summit. Now she's finally on the podcast. And the summits have been fun because we get to hear her take on CAS and M&A. But today's episode, we get to really dig into her story. She was the founder of Good Sense Management. She built that business over a 15-year time frame before successfully exiting it in 2023. She's now the founder of the Incubator, where she kind of takes all the learnings, the scar tissue, the best practice from Good Sense Management, and helps the accounting and bookkeeping community really build business that they want to, the bookkeeping, the accounting firm that they want to. So excited to unpack this story. A lot of firms listening would love to get to a place where they could have a firm that is sellable. So we're going to dive into that and so much more. But Justine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, David. You've been on my radar for a long time. Jetpack was certainly one of the very first firm management tools that I ever saw out there. So it's a nice full circle moment here.
Yeah, now we're like the old guys in the industry because there's so many new things popping up, right? Like you gotta constantly reinvigorate, reinvent yourself.
Yeah, a friend of mine, they're nipping at our heels, babe. Like, the young kids, we're the old guys, so the people behind us they're nipping at our heels.
That's it. That's how it goes. That's the the wonderful and sometimes not so wonderful thing about the marketplace. Well, as we dive into Good Sense, tell us a little bit about what the firm did, who you did it for, and then we'll dig into maybe the evolution of it. But like by the time you sold it, what was the size of the firm? Who were you working with? What services were you providing?
Yeah, so when I exited, that was February of 2023. We had about 100 clients. The team at that point was 6. The largest I had the team was 12, including marketing and operations. But when we sold, I think we had 6. And my niche at that point was always what my niche was. I had a lot of creative agencies. I started my career in the art and fashion world in New York City, and I had retained some of the one client I had worked with for 20 years. He hosted my baby shower. That's how long I had worked with him. And I have a very strong connection to sort of the online marketing, digital education space. Amy Porterfield, Terry Cole, a lot of those people too. So it was very broad, and we were a multi-state team. We had people from Florida to California to Connecticut, and yeah.
Nice. And those 100 clients, what were you typically offering them, and what was the typical price points?
So we were strictly bookkeeping. I never got into tax. I never wanted to get into tax. We were a little bit of pre-advisory scene, right? We didn't have all these cool tools and tricks. Wasn't even really in the cultural vernacular outside of like giant CFOs. And I only did bookkeeping and QuickBooks Online. So I was like hyper specific. And that was really one of the things that made Good Sense distinguishable in the M&A space, because we had been cloud the entire time. And I made a very strategic decision early on that we were going to do one thing, and we were going to do one thing with excellence. And that was just bookkeeping, and just bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online. In terms of the client size, it was very diversified. So I'm a huge fan of diversification. It works in investments. I think it also works in our industry. I understand that people say too niche. I agree that it's important to have expertise in certain areas where, working in the fashion industry, and I mean on the service side, photography, styling, makeup, not actually manufacturing, very specific, very accounting specific protocols. Working in the digital education space, very specific protocols. Same thing with creative agencies. So I like the idea of niching, or niching. I don't know. What do we call it? Potato.
I go with whatever you say, honestly. I think I always default to niche. This is the great tomato debate, right?
Well,
This is
call it specialization. I
yeah.
can pronounce that. Um, so I like diversification in specialization. I think that, if you um we've seen the economy shift over time. When COVID hit, if you specialized in restaurants, your bookkeeping business was decimated. We've seen huge fluctuations with construction over time. Um so we had a wide range of not just industries, but also sizes. So I had a very few legacy annual bookkeeping clients. There was, I think, two when I sold the firm, that had been with me for 15 or 20 years. And then also, we had some like 3 quarterly clients, but mostly it was monthly clients. And then we had, not mostly, it's probably a 50-ish, 55-ish, something split between monthly and what I called full service or weekly clients.
Okay.
So,
And the price range would be typically hundreds of dollars per month, or did it ever get into like low thousands per month?
give me 1 second.
Yeah,
Sorry. You had to edit that part out. I need a tissue.
that's fine. Here we go. I'll
Editing team. Cut. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm back.
Oh, good. So what was the price point then for the clients? Was it hundreds of dollars a month? Did you have some clients that were bigger and low thousands of dollars a month, or what was normal?
I mean, it was diversified. Just, I think
Okay.
that putting all of your eggs in one basket is not wise. I did that when I first started my firm. I had one gentleman I worked for. He had two different businesses. And this is 2004. And he lost both businesses overnight, and each of those retainers were $2,500 each. And I was a single mom at the time, and I basically lost 40% of my revenue overnight. Like, it was literally like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my mortgage moment?
Yeah. So what did
So
you do? In that moment, what did you do? I mean, how did you recover
my
from that?
birthday, and I burst into tears on my sister's lawn. Like, that's what I did.
Yeah, but how did you go? Did you have to go out and get clients? I
Um,
mean, that's a lot of money to recover from early on. So what did you do to build the
I'll tell
business
you
back
what I
up?
did. I'll tell you what I did, and I don't think it was wise. At that moment, I made a decision to not take on bigger clients because I was like, the risk, the risk benefit was too high for me. And at that point also too, I was waiting on getting paid. So that was the first, like, I think I was a real pioneer in the, like, you're not paying me Tuesday for a hamburger today. You're paying me in advance of the bookkeeping, or as soon as it's done. I started to collect credit cards. And I really made a very pointed decision to move towards recurring revenue that was either prepaid or collected upon the completion of the work. And I was lucky because I was very heavily networked inside of this fashion community. This person happened to be in fashion. So, I didn't start making cold calls, but I mean, it was definitely bumpy. Um, but yeah, I mean, that things will happen like that,
Yeah.
and you have to ride it out. This is why, I am definitely an optimist, but I'm an optimistic pessimist. And I think that there is a dark undercurrent and underbelly of entrepreneurship that we're not really candid about. I call this the ceiling fan moment, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're looking at the ceiling fan, just wondering, what am I going to do? So,
Yeah,
uh,
the emotional barometer when you're building is the full spectrum, and I think if you're not building, you know, life is dampened and you don't realize that your days are between a 3 and a 6 most days, but then when you're building, it could literally be 0 and it could be 10, and that could happen in the same day, right? The emotional swings are much higher.
um, so I have one of my earliest friends from elementary school. We reconnected at a high school reunion. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm an ER nurse." And she's like, "I just love the adrenaline." And I was like, "Oh, no way. Like, I'm way too conservative for that." And I had this like moment where I was like, "Oh, no, no. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of parallels to ER nursing with entrepreneurship, where the highs and the lows and the your nervous system getting activated and then calm down again. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it could be a lot. When by the time you sold those 100 clients, they were all monthly fixed fee clients essentially that you were getting credit cards on file for. Is that essentially where the business was at or close to it?
So I know that I'm a little bit of a renegade in the accounting world, but I developed a hybrid system between hourly and package based pricing. So we weren't on like a gold, platinum, bronze. We had a hybrid, and that is one of the things that I teach to my students in the incubator program. But no, if somebody didn't want to give me a credit card or an ACH form, I always used to figure out what their monthly bill was going to be, and then I figured out which way I wanted to get paid based on cost. It was a no go for me, and I
Okay.
lost I lost clients over it, which I was fine with. You know,
Did you ever regret? I mean, it feels like you really had this great focus on the niche, the tech stack, the billing model. Were there ever moments where you were tempted to be like, yeah, well, maybe we should just take on this zero client? Like, we really need the business. Like,
no,
was that ever a struggle for you, or did you always have enough momentum in the niche to, say no to things?
I I said no a lot. I said no a lot, and I said no a lot because integrity is really important to me. And leading ethically is really important to me. And if somebody came to me and said, um, I want to work with you, but I only use QuickBooks Desktop, it was a deal breaker for us. And I was like, listen, we don't do that. And you're going to be disappointed. And if you're disappointed, I'm going to be disappointed in myself. And it doesn't allow my team to flourish and focus on what they do. That's like just setting my team up for failure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really hard to turn away business when you're hungry. I wasn't like that in the very beginning, right? So when I first started, I was a freelancer. I was going around from to studio, which was super cool when you were in your 20s in New York City. Um, but uh, so I didn't have that freedom then financially, and I didn't have that business acumen then, right? That understanding. That was something that came over time. So, but yes, I was able to curate my clients, uh, and it served everybody, right? Like getting into, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to take on Sage. I've never looked at Sage. I literally have like never seen it. And so, doing a good job is important to me. I think it's a lost
Yeah.
art in many industries, but yeah.
In your 15-year journey, just to give the listener some perspective, in what you mentioned it wasn't like that in the early days. When did you really make the shift or you got more comfortable saying no and you just went very niched on the on everything, right? Like was that year 5, year 10? I mean, where did you kind of build enough momentum to get comfortable saying no?
I'm like, I almost even want to look at this. It was a Facebook post. Because I could tell you exactly when. I think. Give me 1 minute. It's going to take me too long to find it. But this how it unfolded was Todd Robinson, who is now with Woodard Events, who does Scaling New Heights and
Yep.
a lot of different other accounting programs. Todd Robinson at the time was at QuickBooks Online, and that's when QuickBooks Online actually had high functioning, amazing account executives. And he laid it all out for me. I was like, this is where the industry is going. I had helped open one of the first online cafes in New York City in 1996. I've always been hyper tech progressive, and I could see it. I mean, the way he laid it out, I was like, yep, this is where it's going. And once we made that shift, once I said, no, we are flipping to QuickBooks Online, that's when I made that decision. And it happened almost in parallel. Like Xero was just kind of coming on the scene. FreshBooks was there, and I think they might have only been an invoicing only option at that point.
Yeah.
And I had this moment, I've repeat the saying for years now, is people were coming to me, can you use this platform? Can you use this platform? Remember, I was still tempted. And I started to feel like a diner. Like I come from Jersey, diners are a big thing there. And the menus are like 9,000 pages long and everything is mediocre. And I was like, I don't want to be a diner. I want to be a 5-star restaurant. I want to do one or two things and do them exceptionally well. And that was literally how I made that decision. And so Todd, bless his heart, I don't know how he did it, but he was able to get into it to agree to fly Valerie Heckman out, who is now with OnPay. And we did an entire team training I rented my town's public library. And my entire team got QuickBooks Online certified together. And I invited our high school accounting teacher to do that training with us. And I think that was probably 2010 or 11. We can fact check that and put that in podcast notes, because I do actually have a Facebook post with the picture of me and Todd and Valerie, my team, and being like, oh, look what we did today.
Yeah,
so,
and that was early. That was very, very early in their cloud journey, because I remember when we were doing interviews, when we launched the first version of Jetpack, call it 2015, 2016, even then people were like, we did an integration with QuickBooks Online. A lot of people were like, well, Zero's going to win, or QB Desktop. They was getting a lot of resistance on QuickBooks Online. And that year, 6 years later, 5 years later, so you were definitely ahead of the curve on doing that. Did you get a lot of leads then from the pro advisor community early on, or is that too nascent in the early days of QuickBooks Online?
We did used to get a lot from the QuickBooks Online database before it went sideways. We got a decent chunk. I'm trying to think. I'm like trying to piece this together, because my last daughter was born in 2012. I actually had offices at that point. I'm like, no, we weren't at the Main Street office. Yeah, it was pre 2012, I think.
When did you go fully virtual? When did you ever get rid of the office entirely?
Hold on. Now I feel like the desire to look for it. Because I don't want to misrepresent, and just give me 1 second. I should know this off the top of my head. Facebook is going to take a minute. 2016. It was like the little post is there.
2016
is when this is when Todd, we were already that way. So this is the post.
Oh, when he flew out.
Yeah, when they flew out. But we already had some clients on QuickBooks Online.
Yeah.
I know for a fact who my very first client was, because it was the midwives for my son, and he was born in 2005. But that was when QuickBooks looked totally different.
Yeah.
Remember, it was like a pastel. It was before they slapped the new interface on it. So we had a light number of clients on QuickBooks Online, but 2015, 2016 is when we went full throttle. But the funny thing is that I was really always virtual, because even in the city, when I had my first daughter, remember I told you I would go around to all these different studios. When I had my first daughter, I decided I had it with that, and I started round tripping QuickBooks files on zip drives using messengers, and was working from my apartment. So that was virtual. I mean, this is pre-online banking. So people would put together a package of their statements, and we would round trip these things. Then when I got an office in Westchester, because I moved from New York City to the northern suburbs, we were using the first iteration of Right Networks. First I had a server, and it was too expensive to maintain. And then we flipped to Right Networks. And we were using QuickBooks Desktop. So my team could, because I worked mostly only with moms, so they could log in at night from after the kids went down, or nice. I could log in. Yeah.
How did you hire moms? Where did you find great accounting moms?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely a little bit of a renegade. I don't advise this for everybody. At that time, people didn't really understand the BCC function and email. So I was on the PTA list, and so I hit reply all. And I was like, if anybody's looking for a job, now I did get a slap on the wrist for that, but I found my first employee through hijacking the PTA list. And then she stayed with me for 10 years.
Yeah.
And our kids were in parallel grades, and it was great because if we forgot, like, one school event, it's like, oh, is this on your calendar? Or is this on my, like, so we we tag teams. I had another mom. She was my California employee who I'd worked with at an art studio. And yeah. And then it wasn't only moms. Then I actually worked locally with my high school. They have an amazing accounting and entrepreneurial program there. And I had two students, both females, start with me their junior. One started her junior year, one started her senior year. And they both worked straight with me straight through college, all 4 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Virtually. They both majored, one in accounting, one in business, and one was still with the firm when I sold.
That's amazing. What was it about? I mean, I feel like it's so hard to assess such a blank slate like a high school student. So, what did you see in who they were that you were like, okay, but I can train them up on the skills, but they have the right on the hard skills on the accounting, but they seem to have the right, was it attitude, character traits? Like, what did you see in them that you're like, you'll be a good fit?
Well, the first thing was like it started with the relationship. I reached out to the person who was heading the accounting program, and I posted this on LinkedIn a short time ago. I was like, my number one piece of career advice is just be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they really underrate just how much being nice can help you. Of course, we're nice because we genuinely want to be nice, but so I just started a friendly conversation with her, and I was like, listen, I would love to have a pay. So for me, we're going back to like sort of that ethical drive. I never had an unpaid intern in my firm. I really don't theoretically agree with them, and we know that under most circumstances they're very gray in terms of the legality of them. So I think that this teacher was receptive because I said, I'm going to do a paid internship, but I want you to send me your very best student. And so she pre-selected these people based on her experience. And then, I think one of the things that I am good at is teaching. I think that was one of the things that helped me build relationships with my clients because I was able to explain things in a way to them that was empathetic, kind, patient, really just relatable, right? Accounting and taxes can be scary for people who are not familiar, especially creatives. And that lent itself to cultivating the people who worked with me because boss is boss, but leaders lead. And there's a very, very big distinction there. One of them is about coaching and cultivating, and one of them is about control. So
from a coaching perspective, what are some examples? Like, I'm trying to unpack this coaching perspective because I think for somebody listening and maybe they didn't have a great, professional coaches as they were kind of being built up in their accounting career. So what would you tactically recommend for somebody listening to improve their coaching for their team? Is there a certain rhythm to how you coach, whether it's one-on-ones or weekly check-ins, or is it an approach you have to coaching that would be most beneficial for them?
Yeah. So, and I think this is also, I want to clarify. So we were always virtual. I did maintain a professional office because I didn't have space in my house to work with small kids in a tiny home at the time. So I always maintained a small office. We were also all working virtually at different hours of the night when kids were down, sleeping, snow days, etc. When we were all in the office together, if say, and this is a made up name, if Susie had an issue with something going sideways in QuickBooks, and we could have up to 4 people in the office at a time, I would stop everybody and I would say, listen, everybody come over and let's look at this together. And so having conversations about how would you fix it? How would you fix it? What do you see? And then if nobody comes up with the answer, showing. But the interesting thing about QuickBooks and accounting is there's many different ways to get, to get to the end result, just as long as the balance sheet and the P&L and the general ledger look good. So that was a very specific strategy. Now, part of that was saving time, because I realized that if I could collectively train 4 people at once, I knew that problem was going to pop up, and I didn't want to have to teach Tammy 2 weeks from now that same thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
now when we flipped all virtual, I did lose my office in COVID, and then I built, this is a shed. It's the she shed. It sits on my property. When we would do virtual Zoom meetings, we had a weekly check-in, weekly team meeting. That's another thing that I teach in the incubator about how to run those. But part of them were roadblocks and hiccups. Roadblocks like a la Amazing Race, like what's stopping you, and then screen sharing and showing. So
Yes.
that collective piece, right? And it was mandatory that all of my team members, once we got the certification, it was mandatory that they maintained the QuickBooks Online certification. Anytime we had a client who was bringing in an additional app, right? One of the things with accounting and clients is they want everything to be under just QuickBooks, but we all know that there are additional POS systems or, salon systems, shopping carts. If there was an opportunity to get certified in that, I would just say, hey, does anybody want to get this certification? Pay them for it. My company was, if not one of the first firms, one of the first 5 from Gusto to complete their people certification course when they released that in 2020. The entire team did it.
Oh, nice.
So just giving them the opportunities to learn,
That I love that. I love that approach of kind of building it into the culture where the team, when they're learning something or when they're stuck, can surface it, collaborate on it, come to a solution. To jump around a little bit, I guess we'll probably end here. When you sold in February of 2023, prior to that, like help me understand the timeline leading up to the sale in February 2023. Did you, for example, a year earlier engage a broker? Were you starting to get inbound requests? Like what led kind of ultimately to the sale?
Yeah. So, we always had a pretty decent SEO footprint. So we did start to get those initial inbound requests when hedge funds and private equity started to like surface. And I did actually start to seriously talk to not an M&A person, but another firm in 2020, and tabled it. Just wasn't the right fit. And the whole thing from finding the broker to sealing the deal took about 10 months. And I had been thinking about it for a while. I was coming up on my 50th birthday. I just landed in bookkeeping. I didn't go to school for accounting. That's like the other piece of my story. But like, I'm an autodidact. I actually taught myself everything. I didn't even graduate college with an associate's until well after I had started the firm. So I just started thinking about like my what's next, what I wanted to do. So, and as much as I loved my clients and I loved my team, I did want to challenge myself. And it was just, I call it the Lion King moment. It is time. Like, same, I was like, okay. And yeah, so.
What was the most surprising in a good way and surprising in not so good way about selling your firm?
Well, surprising in a good way is I did a ridiculous amount of preparation for the transition. Again, going back to ethical leadership, really caring about what you do and the end product. I had seen a lot of firm acquisitions over my career on the accounting side, and they were always terribly executed. No warning and no transition. Like, oh, hey, I sold my firm, peace. And like, it was just awful. And I really took a long time finding the right buyer. So the surprising thing was my hard work paid off. I think the transition went really well. We had a whole transition plan for the clients and for the employees, and I had presentations and transition guides, and it really worked out well. My whole thing was I wanted it to be a win for myself, a win for the buyers, a win for the team, a win for the clients. And I think everybody would say that it worked out that way. The not so pleasant thing was, which it was slightly anticipated, was I sobbed like a baby. when I told my team, I mean, I just was just like sniveling, snot. I I was just sobbing because I loved them so much. I mean,
Yeah.
they had been with me for a really long time. We had just amazing relationships, and of course, you can't tell anybody about anything. It's like between
Yeah, because it may not happen. That's the
you,
thing,
the
right?
boy, but you, the buyer, the broker, the lawyer. Like that's all you could, So it wasn't like I could express my. So like, there was a lot of tension there, I think, anyway. But then, um, I also felt like I was like living in the shadows and like living a lie for a while, and that created a lot of inner tension for me. There was a lot of, um, for me, other people don't experience this, but for me, that was very challenging because of this dichotomy.
Yeah, well, you're spending, there's a huge project you're working on. You can't tell anybody, and you're used to telling them almost everything, right?
And at that time, I was running two businesses because I had launched the first version of the incubator program, which I don't think really explained what that is, but yeah, I help other bookkeepers and accountants grow and scale their firms and ultimately queue them up for exit. But I start with people who are just starting and people who've been in business for a while. But I had started the first iteration of the incubator in 2022, and it was a 1 year program at that time. So I was running two businesses. One of my kids was graduating, one was changing schools. I mean, it was a bananas time. I look back and I'm like, wow, that was very Hermione Granger. Like I don't know, time turning. I'm like, I don't know how I was doing it, but I did it. But it was hard. It was really hard. And that's what
Yeah.
you got to take.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's interesting. You had kind of the next branch you were going to jump on from your prior one, which I've heard is very important. Is kind of like know where you're going to land after you sell. Especially if you're not going to be heavily involved. Um, I feel like and I know you're going to be at the M&A summit, and we have a lot more to dig into. But if somebody wants to reach out, say thank you, learn more, hear a little bit more about the incubator, what's the best way for them to get involved in your ecosystem or potentially learn more about the incubator?
Yeah. So always, connecting on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. So you can just find me by searching Justine Lackey. If you have a light question, you can always just email me. It is Justine at Justine Lackey. It's that simple. And then we do run the Modern Firm Challenge where we actually get together. It's a free challenge that I run. And we work together for 3 to 5 days, depends on what programming I'm doing that time around. And we look under the hood and we figure out where you're frustrated and how to fix it. So that's justinelackey.com/register. So I don't always run those challenges, but if I am, the page will be up. And if not, you can get on a wait list. So
Sounds good. And I have to ask, I know we're wrapping up here, but what are the challenges you see the most? Is it team? Is it packaging? What usually is it marketing? What comes up usually when you do these challenges?
I think it depends at the stage of the business you're at. If you're just starting, sales and marketing might be your challenge. Sales, marketing, and sort of systems. It just depends. I think when you get to that certain level, we know this is a problem, right? Hiring, training, retaining,
Yeah.
and that's where that relationship piece becomes so important. People centric was a core value at Good Sense. It's a core value at the incubator. It will really serve you well. It's the ethical and appropriate way I think to lead your life, but I think it really benefits you in the long term.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we'll make sure to link everything up at jetpackworkflow.com/blog. That's jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We'll do a full write-up. We'll link to your LinkedIn. We'll link to your website and even the challenge there as well. If you enjoyed today's interview, leave a review. If you really enjoyed it, share it. If you share it publicly, tag us. We'll boost it, repost it, whatever platform you're on. But Justine, this has been a treat. Long time coming. And I really appreciate your time today.
That's awesome.